is going on, everyone? It's your guy, Cole Jackson, back with another episode of the WTFlock Postgame Show. We'll be giving you instant analysis and breakdown. Well, not so instant. We're a little bit late. Adam was at the game. We had to get him home. We had to get him sobered up a little bit before we could get into it. But we are ready to go now. Of the Ravens' crushing defeat, 41-17 to the Cincinatti Bengals. If you're enjoying the breakdowns and analysis, click the like button and subscribe so you can find your way back for more. I'd like to thank the sponsors of the WTFlock Postgame Show. It's our guys and gals over at Lee's Pint and Shell, located right in the heart of Baltimore. Great place for right now to drown your sorrows with their drink specials on game day. They got Bud Light drafts, Michelob Ultra buckets, Modelo and Corona pony buckets. I always botch that one. And White Claw buckets on special on Get Ravens game day. It's your go-to. We'll drop all their link or all their information down in the link below. Be sure to check them out. Adam, my guy, you were at the game. Before we get into, the play on the field, let's talk about the game day experience. How was it, my guy?
It was a thing, right? So the game day experience itself was good. I enjoyed it. The Omar whistle in the beginning, the player announcements coming out of the tunnel, the third down and fourth down crowds were loud and they were getting at it up until about the fourth quarter, obviously when the game got out of reach. But I will, kind of take a step back there, Cole, and mention, I did actually drown my sorrows at Lee's post game, and it was a great crowd there, right? It was a busy, you would think it was still game day or game time. They were very busy, lots of guys there, lots of gals there, informed, having conversations about the game, not just saying we suck and everything's awful. They were giving some insightful opinions on that game. So, and every insightful opinion was followed by a shot. So definitely recommend anybody who can get out there, pregame, postgame, whatever it may be, definitely head out to Lee's Pint and Shell. And we'll have some more on when you should be heading out to Lee's specifically later in the show.
Awesome. And so let's not wait. Let's get right into it. We have a lot to talk about. It was, it's literally the polar opposite of last week where, it's a big game. We're playing, an opponent in the AFC playoff picture. This is even bigger because it's kind of it's the AFC North battle, and this was for sole control of first going into the bye. How sweet would it have been to get this win, go into the bye 6-1 in control of the division?
Yep.
And they came out flat. That's kind of from start to finish. The start looked like every other start this year except for the Chargers game and I guess the Chiefs game, you could put that one in there too because the offense played well in that game. But let's start on the offense. Let's start with Lamar Jackson. You had a thing to say online and some people got upset. So walk me through it. What did you think of Lamar Jackson's game?
Okay. So I will say that I mentioned on the Twitters that Lamar Jackson did not have a good game. I'm not saying he's terrible. I'm not saying he's played bad this season. I'm saying in this particular game, compared to the level of play we've come to expect from Lamar based on how he's played, it was not a good game by his standards. So let's say it that way. It was not a good game for Lamar Jackson by the Lamar Jackson standard. Was it still better than most NFL QBs? Sure. Was it a good game? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And for me, it was really predicated upon the decision-making, when to run, when to hold on to it, staying in the pocket too long and taking bad sacks, overthrowing a few guys during the game. It wasn't one particular facet of his game, but when a couple of these little things pop up every other play, overall, it contributed to a lackluster game, again, compared to the Lamar Jackson standard, which we've come to know as a top 10 quarterback play.
Yeah, and there were plenty of snaps early on. I feel like the O-line had a rough night overall, but a particularly rough night in the second half. And there were plenty of snaps in the first half. Like there was one of the play action passes where they pulled. It was a play action power, so Powers pulls over to kick out the right. If we're stage left, it's there. It would be the defensive end over the right tackle. That's
okay.
How I'll put it.
Yeah.
And those are supposed to be bang plays because you're not going to ask a pulling guard to kind of sit down and take on a defensive end. And Lamar held the ball for 6 seconds. So I know everyone's going to say, well, guys aren't getting open, and this is where we get into the whole. We're all pointing fingers, and it's the offensive line sucks, and guys aren't getting open, and it's. there can be three things that you could be right all at the same time. It could be a bad protection, it could be a bad read by Lamar, and it could be no one getting open downfield. That can all be true at the same time. This is what I've noticed after this game. Like we just need to. I don't know. I don't really know how to have this discourse properly. There's no balance right now. It's like I think Lamar Jackson did not have a good game. That doesn't mean he's the reason we lost. It doesn't mean that no one else played bad. It doesn't mean that. And then it turns into like he has no weapons. He has no protection. Like, we're down to like, I'm almost going in at offensive tackle at this point. Like, that's how slim we're getting at our depth, our already depleted depth at full strength. And now we have lost McCary. Like I get what people are saying when they say that, but you can still look at Lamar Jackson's performance in a vacuum. And I thought he made poor decisions holding the football specifically. That was my bigger issue was holding the football when the ball needed to get out. He looked indecisive quite a bit. And yes, that is connected to your protection. When you have bad protection, you hear footsteps, you still have to keep your composure. Look at Burrow early in the game. Burrow was getting smacked in his first 3 drives, and he was standing in there. He was taking shots, but he was getting the ball out. And even if guys aren't open, you can throw the ball away. There was 2 times where Lamar took sacks that pushed us back further out of field goal range. One of them led to the weird decision to not kick. There was one later in the game that knocked us right out of field goal range, and that was when the game was still close. That's just like, especially if your offensive line is playing bad, you have to know better to get the ball out. And that's where I think where I'd like to see more maturity in his game is Lamar is so competitive. He wants to make a play so bad that he's willing to hold on to the ball for something to develop. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but he needs to balance that with taking sacks and getting further out of field goal range. And sometimes you just have to throw the ball away. And so that's kind of where another step's going to come with Lamar Jackson's development.
I don't disagree. And to kind of take that a step further, last week we praised Lamar Jackson for taking what was given to him. He didn't have a stellar game. Again, last week, by his standards, not a fantastic game, but he was taking the throws that were given to him. Same thing against Indianapolis. Take the throws that are given to him. So in that same context of taking what is given to you, with Lamar's mobility in mind, this is where, I know he ran a bunch today, so let's not disregard that aspect. But there were certain plays that I looked at and said, he's got daylight in front of him for 5 to 10 yards. Even if it closes up and he can take a 2nd and 10 to a 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3, instead of standing in the pocket and taking a sack and making that a 3rd and 15, 3rd and 20, 3rd and 23, there are opportunities there. And if everything is truly sealed up, you need to take that opportunity and move the ball to generate positive yardage. Now, the other side of that for me, and something that I've critiqued Lamar on for a while here, and be it fair or unfair, let everybody else decide that. This is my personal critique.
Oh, they're going to let you know. Let them know down in the comments below.
So he does not take 50-50 shots. I'm sorry. Like, to me, and I will not do a comparison to any other quarterback, be it current or past Ravens quarterback, Lamar's very good at hitting guys when they are open, even if it's by a step. And he can thread the needle in times. But when it comes to those shots outside the numbers, in situations that the coverage is tight, he does not take that throw. There's something to be said about concern about interceptions, right? You don't want to throw the turnover. But to me, there's a certain trust level you have to build up. It's hard with Hollywood Brown, right? He's a small dude. You can't throw that outside ball in a 50-50 against a DB who's taller than him and hope that Hollywood's going to elevate above that corner and get that ball. But now you've got Bateman healthy, right? And you have a Mark Andrews. And there are guys out there that have a clear size advantage and have great hands and could at least give you a valiant effort at that ball. And so worst case scenario, incompletion. Best case scenario, reception. But now there's this added factor of defensive pass interference that you can draw. And the Ravens are terrible at drawing those. And a lot of that, to me, has to be with Lamar taking those shots at 50-50. And when you're taking, 5 sacks today, and 4 of them were probably, like you had mentioned, sitting in the pocket 6 seconds. I'd say at least 4 of those sacks were extended time in the pocket where he didn't make the pass or take off. Now, it could be 3, 4, 5 seconds in the pocket. but he needs to start taking those shots, because if you want a defense to respect the deep ball, it's not just respecting the open guy. It's respecting that Rashad Bateman can take that ball 50-50 and go up and steal that away from a corner, or at least give them enough of a challenge that the refs will consider drawing a flag. So that's what I was looking for more today, and it never happened. It never materialized. And again, Lamar not taking what was given to him, even on the ground. In certain situations, obviously he took some. That's where my criticism was drawn.
Well, what I like about that is the criticism that you're mentioning is at least something specific. It's something you can look at. So, that's one of those things where we need to be able to have these conversations that aren't just, you hate Lamar and, it's this and this and that. Like, we need to be able to have tangible conversations. So
Absolutely.
Let's just leave it at that. You guys can let us know. Drop a comment down below. Let us know what you thought about Lamar Jackson's performance. Let's jump into the running backs. What in the world are we going to do? Like, that is, they all looked terrible in their own unique way. Freeman looked the best of the three. The problem with Devontae Freeman is he can't be your lead back. He can be I can say he could be your number two, where he can come in and run a very specific set of plays. A lot of those edge runs, the way they use the edge option to set up the inverted veer, the power read. I think that's what he can bring to you. He can't be your number one, like you're kind of, and I think Latavius Murray is better fit for that role. Le'Veon Bell looked slow. Le'Veon Bell looked really weirdly slow, like slower than last week. It was very strange. His first two runs were for -6. That first run he had that went for -5, it seriously looked like me running the football. Like, it was that slow. So that he had a pretty good game. He was productive last week, but Bell ain't it. And then you look at Tyson Williams. He only touched the ball 2 times, so how can you really say a whole lot? On that one catch he had right at the end of the game, I want to see a little bit more out of him. It's 4th down. Listen, he wasn't getting the first down, so I get that you can be like, oh, who cares? But he didn't even he just kind of stepped out of bounds. He didn't even try.
He didn't try. No.
And so it's like when you hear rumors of, and we heard Jeff Zrebick talk about it on the show, about how he's seen him running tentatively, and that's kind of what the coaches are saying. And then you see that, and it's like, that's running tentatively. Like, that's so, I mean, you get a little bit of, where there's smoke, there's fire. So, I don't really want to talk too much about the running backs. There's not a lot to talk about. They weren't good. They don't look like that those three can get it done. So it's more like, what can we do? Where find me a running back, Adam, find me one.
And that's the problem. So you have limited cap space, and I don't care what anybody says with this whole, the cap's not real. You can find money. Sure you can. You can find $100,000 here, $200,000 there. You don't have enough to go get a viable running back. But I don't care if you had $10 million sitting right now if you're the Ravens. There are no running backs out there in free agency that you can go pick up tomorrow that will come in against Minnesota after the bye and change this ground game right now. Your best bet is Marlon Mack. And what's the delta, right? What's your increase if you have a healthy Latavius Murray versus a Marlon Mack? Will it help? Sure. I don't disagree with that. Is it drastic? No, not at all. And I'm not going to pretend to know how his pass pro is. But look, with Marlon Mack, I don't feel like what he brings as far as the ground game goes is going to alter much of this Ravens offense. You can go out and trade a 6th-round pick for him tomorrow, and against Minnesota, he may give you exactly what you're getting out of a Freeman or a Bell at this point in time. So to me, a lot of it has to do with the offensive line that in the past could mask any of these kind of deficiencies. But ultimately, this Ravens backfield right now is just – it's in shambles. And they've got to figure out either – a way to effectively involve these running backs, or like you said, try to find something new. It's going to be Nate McCrary.
It's worth the shot. At this point, I'm putting Nate McCrary up there, and that's the other thing. The offensive line was bad, and Tyree Phillips didn't do anything to improve anything coming in for McCrary. It was I tweeted about it, and it was kind of a joke. I'm sure he won a couple, but it seriously didn't look like he won it didn't look like he won a single pass rush snap. Like, it was that bad. So we're going to have to see what they're going to do there.
And this is where the bye matters, right? This is where
Bye
having
matters,
left now.
but I think McCary's really hurt. Like, I didn't like how gingerly he was walking, and I don't know what they're. Sharp came in for a couple snaps, and he looked bad too. 62 was playing. I just don't know what the option is here. There's no one out there you can really go get. Everyone keeps talking about Andre Dillard. Andre Dillard's not going to come in here and do anything for us. So, like, stop talking about it. It's silly. Like, he's not good, and that's why he's not playing. So, like, I'm sorry, but this is kind of the problem with offensive line. You basically have to find a guy on a team that's a backup on, like, a bad team that may not
At the end of his contract.
Either that or on a rookie contract. Like, you could go kind of look at, is there anyone in Houston's organization? No. Is there anyone in Detroit's organization?
Right. Jacksonville, one of these places where they.
I mean, Dan Campbell plays every game like it's his Super Bowl, so he's not giving up depth. Like, this is the problem, guys. It's not that you can't find depth at all, but if there's good depth guys out there, they're probably needed by their team. It's not like any other position.
Correct.
It's just the way the offensive line market works. Well, I shouldn't say that. I think you can find decent interior players. Finding offensive tackles is a lot different. There's just not enough to go around. And that means if you do happen to have a swing tackle that is good enough, you're probably a playoff team.
Yeah.
And if you're a playoff team, you're not trading them. And that was kind of the thing I was seeing, like, about some of the guys we could trade for. It's like, we should go to the Bucks and ask for Ronald Jones. Why would the Bucks ever trade Ronald Jones when they're going to be competing? They're a Leonard Fournette injury away from needing a running back. So just because you have a second stringer doesn't mean that that second stringer is disposable to that team. So I don't know what they're going to do. The biggest answer here is this was a draft blunder. They should have been drafting an offensive tackle. The question is, how much would a fifth round offensive tackle make? Great point. I don't disagree. At least you're putting a body in there that's someone developing, someone that you're going to give game reps, someone that's higher quality than pulling guys like David Sharp off the street. Or
I don't disagree with you at all.
Or moving Tyree Phillips out there. So I just want to rant about the offensive line. Let's finish on this. What did you think of, Brown, Bateman, Andrews, the pass catchers? What did you think?
So, in this game, and I'm going to pull this back up again, Bateman was the surprise to me, right? 6 targets, 3 catches, 80 yards. And I feel like, and I know this is going to sound really petty, I feel like he should have been targeted more in this game. I feel like this was a game where he should have been targeted a good bit more, and I feel like it would have been very productive for this team. And again, I talked about the 50-50 balls. From my vantage point, it looked like he had a lot more separation than anybody else did, especially when Lamar scrambled. When Lamar was out of the pocket moving, when the pocket collapsed on him, you could watch Bateman, and he would make a cut, and he'd be open by 2-3 yards. Now, was it always directly in Lamar's line of sight? Absolutely not. It could be across the field, to the left if Lamar's rolling right. But I feel like that was the guy that should have been targeted more. Marquise Brown, 5 on 14 targets, though. Let's talk about that. 5 on 14 targets. Do you blame that on him, or is that just bad placement of the ball, or was it just trying to force an issue?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go back and really look at it to see what was going on in the cover. Like, that's kind of my biggest thing. Everyone's kind of talking about how guys aren't getting separation. And I mean, that kind of makes sense in the sense that it didn't seem like anyone was open. And I mean, it's either that or Lamar is just straight up not seeing guys. But we're going to have to go look and see what's going on. But I was shocked when I went, but didn't feel like it was 14 targets. Definitely felt like a lot of targets, but 14, I was like, wow. But I mean, it's one of those things where, like, I can think of 3 deep shots off the top of my head that were missed. So, I mean, that's 3 right there on top of the 5 catches. You're already at eight targets. I just don't remember a lot of these, so I was shocked by that. But, I mean, it's Lamar's guy. He trusts him. He trusts him more than fans do. And he just had that touchdown was sick. And it wasn't just the catch was incredible. Lamar threw a dime.
Absolutely. And that's the problem, right? You see that dime get dropped in, and then you're like, what the hell else has been going on all day between the receivers getting separation and Lamar's accuracy? So, I mean, he started, 0 for 4?
Started 0 for 4. I felt his accuracy settled in a lot better than after the decision-making. Yep. I feel like when he was throwing the ball, it was a lot better, but it was more his decision to throw, where to throw, et cetera, et cetera. And then we're going to jump into the defense, but I want to finish on this note. I thought personally, Greg Roman called a really poor game. I think the lack of inside running was odd. I know they were stacking the box, but not even to try and get your power going that worked so well against the Chargers. I thought that was a huge missed opportunity. You can say the defense played a lot differently than the Chargers, and that's fair. But we just saw a good performance by this offensive line running power, and they were still trying a lot of the edge stuff. They're kind of, I mean, you'd have to actually go back and chart the running back runs, but it seems that the running backs are more focused on getting them to the edge. Like most of Freeman's runs are going to the edge. We had that Bell run go to the edge. Like there's been a lot of edge running and not so much up the middle. So I know the offensive line isn't playing well, but if I want to try and get those guys some confidence and I just had success running power, maybe keep doing that. So I won't get too much into Greg Roman. That was just my thoughts there. Into the defense. I mean, I don't know. I'm sick of talking about it every week because, like, I guess we could just say this defense can't tackle. They had 3 touchdowns off missed tackles. 2 were from Deshaun Elliott. 1 was from Marlon Humphrey. And this is just straight up like a catch was made, sure, and maybe you could look at why that catch was made and look at someone else for being. But you got to make tackles. Like this is silly at this point. Deshaun Elliott missed the tackle on Uzama and the other on Jamar Chase, where he kind of like took Humphrey out at the same time. And
he did,
missed. Yep. And then Humphrey missed the tackle on the first Uzama touchdown just by over pursuing it. And I mean, this is kind of the problem. Like if I were to look at 2 of the more aggressive players, like 2 of the tone setters on defense, it's those 2. It's Fruit Punch and it's the Joker. And then you have Calais Campbell up front that kind of sets the tone. You got Brandon Williams, guys that can lay the wood. When I talk about the missed tackles and what I think a lot of the issue is, I'm talking about the culture. And people will look at that and how do you know that? And I mean, it's just all I go back to is that clip 2 games ago where Patrick Queen missed a tackle. It was against the Colts. Patrick Queen missed a tackle. Marlon Humphrey gets in his face and yells at him, mostly to kind of be a leader. And leadership's great. But then on that very next play, Marlon Humphrey missed a tackle. And this is like where I think the Ravens were spoiled to have guys like Ray Lewis and Ed Reed that could set the tone for the defense and then also get in your face and then show you how to do it. I don't expect anyone to be a Hall of Famer. You don't have to be a Hall of Famer to be a leader. But there's that whole leading by example, that tone setting. It just doesn't seem to be present in this defense. And I think that's where they're missing their swagger.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And it was a lot of things, right? It was like, teams don't target Marlon Humphrey because they'll target Anthony Averett and get success. Well, today they targeted Marlon Humphrey and got success. And, again, that one touchdown, Elliott took Humphrey out at the knees where, it was a completion for sure for Chase, but it was like a 10-yard completion versus a 80-yard touchdown pass because our own defender took our own guy out. And that's a tackling issue, right? So it was bad, right? Today was just bad all around. I didn't see anything this defense did successfully where I'm like, well, at least you can lean into that and say, like, we did this well, but we need to work on this. Across the board, there was nothing done successfully. They got no pressure on Burrow. They had some early pressure you mentioned earlier.
I was going to say, I thought the pass rush early did its job. I mean, they hit Justin Houston had 4 QB hits. And that was more a product of
early.
Burrow just didn't once seem to caulk the ball where he would start to throw and then have the pressure and then hold it and take the sack. He just was getting the ball out. And it seemed like every time he was doing it, it's, maybe a guy wasn't wide open, but his receiver had a chance to make a play on the ball. They ran a lot of, I'm really interested to look at Sports Info Solutions and see what the coverages we were playing was, because it sure seemed like we played a lot of cover 3. Maybe we didn't. I'm really interested to look, but it seemed like everything that worked on the sidelines was comebacks, hitches, that sort of thing, where you're kind of sagging off and going into your deep third zone. And those are cover 3 beaters, or those kind of sideline comeback routes, sideline out, sideline hitches. So we'll have to see when.
I was going to say the Jimmy Smith coverage on that 4th and 1 to Jamar Chase. That was a comeback. And it was like a 15-yard pickup or something on that play. Yeah. It's exactly what it was. The first time they took Marlon Humphrey off of him in that game, and that led to a scoring drive. So there was a lot of that in that game. And the corners just weren't sticking their guys, and the pressure couldn't get in the face of Burrow quick enough to make anything happen. And not to take this back to the offense per se, but this is the difference, right? When Burrow's getting rid of a ball and trusting a Jamar Chase or a CJ Uzoma or whoever it may be, Tyler Boyd, to make these catches with the pressure in his face, or at least draw a penalty or have a shot, a valiant effort, a more than 50% shot at catching these balls instead of taking a sack, that's what we weren't seeing from our offense today. So there is a certain trust factor there, especially obviously with Jamar Chase and playing together at LSU with Burrow. But that was the thing that helped that offense for the Bengals, while at the same time you add in the Ravens' lack of tackles. And again, I'll go back to Odafe over pursuing and missing an easy sack on Chase that turned into a big completion. It was like, again, nothing one glaring thing that I can point to, but it was like everything was lacking today, and that all adds up to 400-plus passing yards for the third time this season and 41 points you allowed. Not even like Lamar threw a pick six. It was all against the defense today. The defense allowed 41.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that was kind of a takeaway of mine is, and I saw a lot of people saying the front seven didn't play well, and I have a bit of a different spin on it. I actually thought the front seven for the first three quarters played really well. I thought they did their job. I thought they were getting enough pressure that it wasn't like we have zero pass rush. It was like, okay, we have a bit of a pass rush, but no one's finishing. That's a bit of a different critique. And I thought they stuffed the run really well. But then it was, well, maybe not the first three quarters, but at least the first two quarters. As soon as we miss those tackles, and this is why I'm going to talk about culture and attitude and swagger and like some of these words that people don't like because you can't really measure them, and I get it, but once we missed those tackles and they had those, it just felt like everyone got punched in the gut and everyone kind of stopped playing. And I really saw that reflected in the trench battle, because I thought our defensive line actually did quite well against the Bengals until those happened. It was after, I think, the 81-yard touchdown where it's like, it just looked like they had their will sucked out of them. And it was just kind of like, and I think, and then, Perrine rips one off and Mixon runs one off. So I'm not saying that that's inexcusable. I'm not saying the front seven played well. I'm saying that is a very concrete example of where I see them, get these missed tackles from defensive leaders. And then everybody else is just kind of like, the wind's out of their sails.
Nail it in.
I think it's a really good concrete example of what I'm trying to say when I'm trying to show what the issue is. So, what do we need to do moving forward? Guys got to bring it. Guys got to make tackles. Guys got to get these things done. We're going to wrap up here, but before we do, we have some pretty exciting news. Adam, why don't you hit our listeners with some exciting news that's coming up with the show?
Yeah, absolutely. So we teased this last week, what we're going to get ourselves into here with What the Flock in conjunction with our host, Pint and Show. So we have the bye week coming up. Following the bye week, we're going to start a fantasy football event, if you will, with Pint and Show on DraftKings. It's just going to be LPS. I'm making sure I get this right here. LPS, for Pint and Show. It'll be what are we calling it here, Cole? What the Flock Fantasy?
What the Flock Fantasy Challenge.
Thank you, Cole. Things I don't write down. So we'll start the What the Flock Fantasy Challenge. So every week, for those invited, and again, Cole and I will be pumping this out. At least Pint and Shell will be pumping it out. We'll get you guys hooked up. Send us over some email addresses. We'll get you into DraftKings to join this private league. It'll be, play your weekly in, go bet on the Ravens game specifically for daily fantasy. And if you're in attendance, at least Pint and Shell, it'll be a bucket of beer on the house at the end of the game for the winner, plus obviously your winnings on DraftKings. And at the end of the season, whoever has the most tickets will have a pair of tickets to the Ravens Steelers regular season finale at M&T Bank Stadium for you. So something to keep your eyes on. Again, it'll start the week after the bye with the Minnesota game and every Ravens game thereafter through week 17, which is the Rams game. And then we're also going to be doing a few live events down at least Pint and Shell, post-game, pre-game type stuff. Minnesota game we're looking at right now. And also we'll have Cole Jackson in town in Baltimore, and I'm looking very forward to that later in the month of November. And he and I will be doing a show down at least Pint and Shell as well. Again, more details to come there. So we definitely want to encourage you guys to, again, jump on that fantasy train once we start pumping that out. And then join Cole and I down there at least Pint and Shell next month in November for some live stuff and a meet and greet. And I cannot wait to sit and have a beer with my boy Cole.
Oh, I'm so pumped, man. I'm hoping none of the followers on Twitter that I've made mad show up and hit me in the head.
Bring that mad online to real life. Come on.
Seriously. I'm Canadian, so I'm just going to apologize right to your face. So a lot of exciting stuff going on. Adam and I are super, super, super thankful for our partnership with Lee's. They've been awesome. And so, like I said, be sure to check them out. Huge supporters of us. They're huge, they're huge Ravens fans. Like, they're bigger Ravens fans than I am. They're legit. So be sure to check them out. They have an awesome atmosphere on game days. Check them out on Instagram too, because they always put up stories and posts from, what's going on there, so you can see it for yourself. So that's all we have for you today. We're hoping for, I tweeted about it, and this game really reminded me of the Browns loss in 2019. A division rival, an up-and-coming team, but not necessarily a team that you're necessarily fearful of, comes in and just whoops you. And at home, nonetheless. That Browns game was at home too.
Yep.
And it's embarrassing, and it should be embarrassing. And
it should be a wake-up call.
It's bad, and you should feel bad. It's exactly that quote. That's how the Ravens should feel. So, what I said is, in 2019, you go into fight or flight mode, and the Ravens came out in 2019 with a fight, and they went on that run to finish the regular season. I'm not expecting them to, win 12 in a row or whatever we have left, but if they don't come out hungry against the Vikings and start walking with that swagger again, it's going to tell you a lot about the personality on defense, and a lot about, where we need to be investing, in terms of resetting what that mindset is on the defensive and the offensive side of the ball.
Agreed.
Including in the trenches. Like, guys got to come in hungry, guys got to come in and want it. So like I said, that's all we have for you today. Be sure to check out Lee's, link down below. Check them out. Be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. Peace out, everyone.